I am Owen Cottle. I live in Fishkill. I was in the Army Air Corps from 1943 to 1945. I am 95 years old and still kicking.
Thank you. Would you like to go next?
My name is George Dickman. I live in East Fishkill, right around the corner. 3 of my children graduated from this school, and my oldest son was in a photography club. I was in the Army from 67 to 69. I'm a Vietnam vet. I was at the 1st Cavalry Division, and I was at Fort Benning in Vietnam.
Thank you.
After that, everything's a blur.
Would you like to go next?
My name is Jim Broughton. I live in Fishkill, New York. I served in the United States Air Force from 1958 to 1962, Tachikawa, Japan, Taipei, Formosa, and Dover Air Force Base, Delaware.
Thank you. Would you like to go next?
I'm Daniel Oberhauser. I was in the U.S. Navy from 1961 till 1965. I was overseas 3 years, 8 months in the Middle East, the North Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, and I was involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Thank you. Would you like to go next?
I'm Henry Haklowski. I was in the infantry, 26th Division, 104th Infantry Regiment. I served in France, similar years as the young man over there, from 1943, same years, 43 and 45, so that was World War II. I'm 2 years younger, I'm 93.
Thank you. All right, so now, Max, would you like to ask our first question? I'll reset this again.
So, just if you could tell me where were you drafted, and like why did you enlist in the United States military?
Start with me.
Yeah, let's go around.
I lived in Connecticut. I was in college at the time. I was drafted, entered the service February 2nd, 1943, went to a base in Massachusetts, Fort Devens, where the temperature that time, it was in February, the temperature was 22 below zero. I'll never forget it. I was there a week and got on a train and went to Miami Beach, Florida, where the temperature was 80 degrees. We did our basic training on the beach in Miami Beach, but lived in one of those fancy hotels that they had down in that area.
Can I ask a general question? How many of you were drafted?
Right here.
Yeah. When you get that draft letter, like what goes through your head when you get that draft letter?
Well,
I was glad to get it.
You were glad to
It was
get it.
time to go.
I knew it was coming. I turned 18, you know, and then in World War II, as he knows, as soon as they could get you, there was this guy with that fancy, you know, red, white, and blue hat said, "I want you." That's what was on the brochure. So 3 months later, I was in the service.
3 months between getting the
I
letter.
turned 18 and September 3rd, 1943. December 3rd, I was in the service. I took my basic down in Mississippi. I entered it up, and it wasn't quite as cold as it was in Devens. After there, I took my, it was with, see what it was, 69th Division I took my basic with. But I transferred into the 126 to go overseas. We were what it was, there was a whole bunch of people in England waiting to go land in Europe. And what they did, they basically emptied England out of what troops were there, landed somewhere in, you know, Utah Beach or Omaha Beach. And then after they exhausted all the troops in England, we were the 1st Division that came directly from the United States to, in my case, Utah Beach, on the Argentina, which was a passenger ship. Of course, in them days, you were escorted in convoy when you went overseas because of submarine. And they stuck the troop ships and oil tankers in the middle of the convoy for maximum protection. And over in there, we just happened to be in a severe storm going over. And I was Argentina, which is a pretty good size ship. And you looked at the center of the convoy, the Liberty ships were small.
Yeah.
And you'd see them, and you wouldn't see them. You'd see them, and you wouldn't see them. And I was lucky I didn't get seasick. And the way there were so many troops aboard that how you got fed by color or number, whichever they chose that particular day. And you had to be in line at a given time. And if you came early, then you went to the end of the thing. That lasted about 2 days. And then there was so damn many people seasick, they said, forget all the colors, all the numbers, come on the hell everyone. The only trouble was you couldn't sleep in a cabin. So many people even up in the cabins that you couldn't stay in.
How long did the crossing take?
Huh?
How long did that crossing take from England?
The convoy?
Yeah,
11 days.
11 days.
Of course, any convoy traveled at the speed of a slow ship.
Yeah.
Had no choice. You know. If you wanted to stay a convoy, you had to go. And they dumped us off at Utah Beach. There was fighting in the Brest Peninsula then. And we went into reserve there for a few days, and then went by convoy to the front lines. And it was funny, you know, as the trucks, they trucked us part of the way, and as the trucks kept going along, you kept hearing the artillery shells louder and louder and louder, which meant, of course, you were getting closer and closer and closer to the line, front line. And the truck driver, the black guy there, he says, well, better you than I. Because he would only drive us to a certain point of the front. And then funny how you go up and introduce yourself to battle. We were going up, and then we relieved the part of the 104th Armored Division. And they were experienced troops, so they were very quiet. We were quite noisy. Point blank telling us, shut up. And of course, boom, boom. Of course, they know where the hell we were. That's why they're telling us, shut up. They were used to it, so they stayed quiet. But we learned quick.
How much training did you have before you went into combat? You said you were down in Miami. Like, how many weeks?
13 weeks was basic training.
13 weeks. Did it feel like enough training? I mean, I don't know how you prepare
Well,
for something like this.
the problem was they needed guys now, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't a matter of that. There was, I think at the start of World War II, there was around 350,000 troops only. That's the entire armed forces. Of course, we went from 350,000 or so to 16.25 million. That was pretty fast and rapid buildup. So there was no time to waste. Anything more you want to hear, just ask me. I'll gladly answer.
Was it quick to, like, how quick was it to adjust to military life? Like, to adjust to living in? that
Well,
system?
I think it was fast. Let's say my first day. Right? Got it made to bed. I thought it was pretty neat, you know. Sergeant come in, looked at it, ripped it apart, walked out the door. It was right. It wasn't tight enough. So you learn how to make a tight bed. That was the first lesson you learned. If that bed wasn't tight, that sergeant was just, I imagine that was universal, right?
You scrub the floor for the next week.
That's right.
What are you running, a junk shop?
Yeah, that's right. We had all these come. You learn to make a tight bed, believe me.
You had to drop or a half a dollar off it and it had a bounce.
Well, in my case, the sergeant used a quarter. I guess he was poor. Yeah, you adjusted pretty quick. You had to. Yeah, you know, a few guys crying at night.
Was this your first time away from home as well?
It wasn't my case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First
was.
time away from home?
Yes.
Was it the first time away from home for everybody, that when you?
Well,
No,
we
I'm
were
married.
family, but not by myself, yes, it was, but I was with the Civil Air Patrol, and we went to summer camp, and for 2 weeks, upstate New York, and had that, so it wasn't really, you know, like a little adjustment, but you got to live with it and you learn, like you said, strip the bed, make it wasn't made right, you know. But one of the things that they really told you when I enlisted, and he gave me, he says, remember this number. You'll be asked that at least 1,000 times. And I says, AF 125640003. That was my ID number.
You bet they do.
That's what they.
He's 95, I'm 93, and I still remember.
31, 31, 36, 60.
Every day, carried a pack. Yeah, so,
You were a skinny grunt.
oh, yeah. I was like a green grasshopper.
And you guys were constantly on the move, right?
Not always on the move.
Not always on the move.
Sometimes you'd be a stagnant position in the foxhole or slit trench.
Well, you guys had a front, at least.
Oh,
You had
yeah.
a front. We
Yeah.
had no front. The whole country was a front,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, a little different war.
Well, that's it. Every war is different. How relevant is what I know
Yeah,
today to somebody going to Afghanistan? Or
yeah.
it's not. You know, they have their own war that they'll talk about or put up with.
Well, sometimes you'd be in direct attack, you'd be man on man. Various ways.
Well, that was good for us because they were, at 125 pounds, I still outweighed them by
Yeah,
75 pounds.
yeah, well, it wasn't Germans, but the crazy thing, the Japanese had a hook on the end of their rifle, which was supposed to be able to engage and pull the rifle away from your enemy. The only problem was the average Japanese was about 30 pounds lighter than the average American. And it didn't work out well. I don't think they used it much.
And they probably said, who thought of this?
Which was stupid for them. If you were in hand-to-hand combat, I don't think trying to hook the rifle away from, unless you found a shorter, you know, you had some,
Well, they could have, the Vietnamese were small,
yeah.
but they didn't have rifles, so that's kind of irrelevant.
What's that?
When the Japs were in Vietnam during World War II,
Oh.
I mean, they had nothing. They had no rifles, they had nothing. The French had that,
Oh,
and they left. Fend for yourselves, we're out of here.
yeah.
You know, years ago, our Congresswoman Sue Kelly had a meeting at the Fishkill Town Hall in regards to the treatment at the Castle Point Veterans Hospital. And I got up and I spoke. I said to her, every veteran has sounds and memories that only cease when they die.
flashbacks.
Yep.
Yeah, I had one bad dream. About 6 months after I got out, I woke up in a cold sweat. I dreamed I was still in basic. You know, but other than that, that was the only bad dream.
Wish I only had it. No, I still have them today.
Yeah, no, some people it affects people different. I know guys that still have it.
In fact, in the crazy thing in Verdal, where I was captured, I read one thing I didn't want, two things I didn't want. In combat, I was willing to die. I didn't want to go blind, and I didn't want to be a POW. And I had that understanding with the lieutenant. And when it was eventually captured, I was trying to get permission from him to fight my way back. He wouldn't. And we never fully seen eye to eye after that, and captured and after the war. It was 34 years before he came to the lieutenant came to one of our, we had regimental reunions right till there wasn't enough of us to go. That's what it is now. There's just not enough of us alive or capable of getting there. So we were sort of on, in terms. I had my point, he had his point. And then there was, the 26th Division had a magazine called the YD, Yankee Division. And in it, this one particular issue, it was printed every 3 months. It said, please say a prayer. This one guy writing the article said, please say a prayer to these two guys were Medal of Honor winners, and to the 2nd Battalion of the 104th Regiment. They were wiped out at Redal. I was in the 2nd. Still here, I think. And the funny thing is, to this day, I don't remember that battle. I don't. No. Yet, the battle was so fierce that approximately 3/4 of our battalion was wiped out. Why don't I remember it? The psychiatrist says probably your mind is not letting you. Something happened there that your mind would not let you to this day. So I talked over to him, and I told the situation to the psychiatrist. He said, you ought to go see that lieutenant, see what the situation is. So my 3 boys agreed, and we went, he lived in Ohio. We went over to see them, and the guy was basket case. That was bothering him. I was probably, at that time, the only person on this earth that you could give him some relief. He knew what I felt, that I was not happy with the surrender and the like. Although he calculated it was the right move. And it was bothering him. So I said, well, you're my hero. I made peace together. And he clung to me.
It was an extraordinary gift to give him.
Yeah, and clung to me, and we made our peace. I called him my hero. In fact, he almost made me late for the plane. We're trying to get back, and just thank God I happened to go there. He died 3 weeks later. And his son, his daughter said, he got peace. He was suffering before that. Well, see, I was seeing my point, I didn't want to be a POW, I wanted to fight my way down. He was seeing he was responsible for the unit.
How many of you were captured?
I don't know. All I can tell you, 3/4 were dead, so you know it wasn't too. A battalion in World War II was approximately 800 to 900. So 3/4 is dead, and to this, like I say, to this day, I don't remember that.
But he was responsible for keeping a large group
Yeah,
of these.
he had, in other words, if I left without his permission, I would have been court-martialed. Even though the thing that, to me, the thing to do, get the hell out of there. We're just gonna gradually each die as we go and get out of there. But he had a different show. And like I say, thank God that we had peace with one another. I don't know what I would have been without.
My father was in World War I, 1919 to 1921. When I asked him, what was it like? He says, you don't want to know. He says, the gas, though, that was the worst, when they would gas the troops. He's lucky he got back, he made it, everything. But I went in and I says, I'm going to join. He goes, okay, enjoy yourself. He says, you're going to be a flyboy, huh? I said, yeah, I like the Air Force. I said, my oldest brother was in Pearl Harbor with the Army Air Force at that time when it got December 7th.
First time I went across the Atlantic in the destroyers, I was so seasick. I lost 14 pounds in 10 days.
Oh my.
I was so sick. I got tired of being sick, and that's how I got over it.
The same thing happened to me when we crossed the Atlantic. I was seasick. It was a 9-day trip. I was so seasick when finally the sergeant came down. He said, Cottle, I got to get you out of this sack. He says, you're going on KP.
Oh,
I went up on top, and the seasickness disappeared. It was great to get out in the fresh air. That's how I got rid of it.
Yeah.
But you were, yeah, it was terrible. I know what you're talking about, Danny.
Yep.
Well, they sent me to school. I went to basic at Lackland in July, 12 weeks there, and then I went to 8 weeks to Wichita Falls, Shepherd Air Force Base for schooling. And then the day I graduated from school, they handed me a piece of paper, and I look at it and I'm reading it and I'm saying, Tachikawa, with? And he said, Japan. I said, oh my God. I said, I'm going across the ocean. And then I went home for 2 weeks. Then I flew to Travis Air Force Base in California. And then we flew 2 days to get to Tachikawa to set up there. But it's different, like the C-118s, different planes when I went over there today and, you know, taking the troops, you know, we took them on C-130s, C-124s. They fit in mostly paratroopers. And,
So you had lots of men. How many men could you fit on one of those planes?
about 100,
Yeah,
120, depends how much pack they have
yeah.
and how much weapons they carried. And then when I came back to Dover after Tachikawa, I got promotion and I was put airman in charge of space control. The pilots and the loadmasters would come in with a sheet with all kinds of figures on it. And I had to inspect that and check it, make sure that the weight and balance was level.
Yeah.
If it was this way, when the plane came in to land, it would crash right on its nose. Or maybe it wouldn't even take off because of the weight and everything and then like that.
So that circuit that you did, how long would that take you? That circuit that you had described doing?
5
It
days.
was a 5-day circuit, and you.
And because of the type of planes, not like today,
Yeah.
where you can fly 2 hours from here to Fort Lauderdale, and you know, a lot different. Same thing with the ships. I'm sure the ships go a lot faster today across the Atlantic or the Pacific, you know, with the new type of motors they have and everything.
I could tell you that some of these new nuclear aircraft carriers going in phenomenal speed. And I'm not going to say because it is classified information.
But they're very fast.
When the missile crisis happened, I was with the fleet stationed in Naples, Italy. And when the missile crisis came, they took the USS Enterprise a couple supply ships, a couple destroyers and submarines, and they sent it down to Cuba. But a little over 3 days, the Enterprise was down in the Caribbean outside Cuba. The rest of the convoy was still in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow, so the Enterprise was a very fast ship.
Yes.
Yeah. And what did you do can you talk a little bit about the Cuban Missile Crisis and what that was like being on one of those ships at the time?
Well, we had 2 5-inch gun mounts in the front and one in the back. Then we had the 30-40 caliber machine guns. And we'd pull up along these Russian freighters. They would have these boxes or canvas over these things. You could tell they were 90 or 100 foot long. And when we put alongside, they had equivalent to the 3-inch gun. They would set up their machine guns and all their armament and pointed at us. And they were probably locked and loaded, ready to shoot. And we'd pull alongside and wave, and they waved back. If we tried to stop them, we would have been blasted out of the water and never known what hit us. They were the missiles.
Oh, I wanted to show you that. You wanted to see a mortar?
Yes, please.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Step one on that end.
Wow.
That's all it is, not a lot to it.
Mm-hmm. But yet very heavy and very powerful. And
Yes,
very-
that's what the other guy carried.
So you were taking pictures over there?
Yeah,
You had a camera and?
I had a pen double E that I bought from a guy for $10. And what it does, it takes a half frame. So if you had a roll of film with 20, you got 40.
Huh, okay.
I had a big book like that at home, and my wife said, oh, they only want pictures when you were in the service, a couple there, a couple when you were boot camp, so I didn't bother to bring it.
I didn't either.
Oh, well, hopefully you'll talk to us again, and maybe we'll love to see them. Yeah, absolutely. We didn't get to hear, we sort of talked about everybody's jobs, but we didn't really get to talk about your
Okay.
job. And-
Yeah, I was not a combat soldier at all. In the Air Corps, we were not in danger. We were way away from the fighting area, but I was an aircraft armorer, which meant I loaded the bombs in the airplane every night, and when the planes came home, we cleaned the machine.
And what it does,
We
it takes...
sort of talked about everybody's jobs, but we didn't really get to talk about your
Okay.
job. And-
Yeah, I was not a combat soldier at all. In the Air Corps, we were not in danger. We were way away from the fighting area, but I was an aircraft armorer, which meant I loaded the bombs in the airplane every night, and when the planes came home, we cleaned the machine guns and loaded the ammunition buckets. That's what the job was all about.
And you were stationed in,
It started in England, then in France, and then in Holland.
okay.
We were in Holland when the European War ended.
Okay. What was that like to hear that the war was over? Were you still in jail were you still in prison, I should say, when the,
No, don't forget, the war in Europe ended, what about, May 8th,
right?
May 8th, 45.
45. Yeah.
So, in fact, I was in Times Square in BJ.
So how did you get out of prison?
Oh, no, the war ended May 8th, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, no, so I'm sorry. When you knew that the war in Europe was over, so you guys were in Europe, like,
yeah, I came home.
yeah, you came home. How quickly? How quickly were you released from,
Well, what they did, after the war ended in Europe, you were sent home if able, and it was by points. And the points were,
You needed 80
yeah,
to get out.
and the way you got them, service, combat, POW. I had all three, so I had plenty of points. So I came home early, but the war in Japan was not over yet. War in Japan ended in August, so there was a lot of time. I was given a choice of going to England because there wasn't enough boats to take everybody, even those with points. Didn't have, it didn't matter. They could only take so many.
right?
And I was offered a chance to go to England and get some free furlough time, or go home, and I chose, I wanted to get home.
Yeah.
And I chose to get home, and I came home on a 70-some day furlough, and I had 15 months back pay, and a lot of that was combat pay and POW pay, which was extra amount of money. So I had what was considered then a pretty good set of money. I had always promised myself in combat prison that I was going to have a ball when I got out of this goddamn thing, and I did.
Yeah.
I spent all every goddamn dime I had. I think I went up to Lake Placid with 25 cents in my pocket from 15 months back pay.
We were 100 miles away from New York Harbor on the way back when the war in Japan, the Pacific War ended. And I got back and went back up to Fort Devens to see what was going to happen, because the plan was that we would get 30 days off and then go to Okinawa. I had enough points, the 80 points that we were talking about. I was discharged. Very, very lucky.
Yes.
I had a father-in-law that was, he had a guardian angel, there's no doubt about that.
If you survived, you had a garden age.
I'm sorry, I'm still very confused about how you ended up being released from being a prisoner of
War
war.
and don't forget, the war in Europe ended May 8th.
So was it on May 8th, they just
No,
opened
not-
up the doors and?
It was before then. It was about, what had happened? The Germans were fighting the Russians harder mainly to allow their troops to surrender to the Americans. And it became very obvious that they were going to lose the war, long before May 8th. So they just came one day to the prison camp. It was probably 3, 4, 5 weeks before the war ended. They said, go.
The Germans did,
Yeah.
just let you out.
Yeah, and the funny thing was that, of course, the guards all wanted to, them to say good words about them. Some were good, some weren't so good. And the one guy asked this guy, who was this son of a bitch, this guy, and he wrote, if he'd write him a letter, he says, oh, sure. He says, shoot the son of a bitch, and gave it to him. Now, whether that guy turned that letter in, he said, you got more balls than I got. You realize he might, first of all, a lot of Germans speak English. And if he doesn't, he knows somebody. And you're not free, you're in German territory. I don't give a goddamn. And that's what he wrote.
So they let you go, and then you just walked out of the prison and you walked?
Just went. You wouldn't believe.
Did you know where you were going?
Absolutely, Shireen.
Okay.
The road was loaded with tanks with their turns reversed. I don't know if you know what that means. When you reverse your turn on a tank, you surrender. They're going to the American lines to surrender. In fact, they're inviting, they've seen our uniforms, come on a tank and make sure the Americans, well, I didn't have nothing to do with them. And we just walked in, and serene were just all these Germans surrendering. To the Americans, and you crossed, I forget the river, it wasn't the main river, well, anyway, there was all kinds of tanks. This is before the war, and that over.
Right.
All these piles of tanks on the ground, piles of different types of weapons piled up, trucks, unbelievable. Small army. It's for people surrendering. No one was resisting me. But the one thing that I was a little ashamed of my fellow Americans, this one German was coming in there, and these guys, I don't know who the hell they were. Nice old man, you know. They hired, you know, they put guys in their 50s and stuff. You know. And some of these smart-ass guys, kids, come in and said, took his wallet and took his picture of his family and threw him out of the ground. I happened to be back there. I picked the damn pictures up. Here's a POW. I picked the pictures up and handed them to the guy. The soldier says, he said, Danke. And I told these guys, get lost. You know what? I meant it. Stupid thing to do. I mean, what are you going to gain? Here's an old man that went in. I consider him an old man. Everybody here is older than he was.
He was just a
Are you
kid.
saying we're calling kids?
Because I was 18, right? So, no. So I had no. Before the war was over, people were letting prisoners go. Germans were surrendering to the Americans a good while before the war really ended. So I had the points. I offered me the chance to go to the United States or England, and I chose the United States. And crazy, when I got there, I told you I had a ball, but how I got to go to VJ Day, I was going to Coney Island. And in them days, they had these big boom boxes. Remember those people, you carry them on their shoulder, big boom boxes. They used to go blasting it away. And he comes over and he says, hey, they're saying the Japs about ready to surrender. I said, what the hell am I doing in Coney Island? I'm going to Times Square. So I got off the next station, headed back to Times Square. So I got in Times Square before the announcement, and I don't know if any of you remember, I know these guys do. Remember, Times Square had a sign that were around recent events. I got there before the Japanese surrender came on. Now, there's hardly anybody in Times Square. And all of a sudden, this announcement comes, Japs surrender. From nobody in Times Square to the zillion. Now, there wasn't many soldiers or even males at that point. It was mostly females. Females come out of the office, see these soldiers, and few that were there. Oh, Christ. My shirt was full of rouge, lipstick, everything. And they were telling me to be friendly and all that sort of stuff.
Huh. Yeah.
You know what they would do is they would pace off what they would consider a vulnerable area or something they could hit, like an ammo dump. And when they would catch them, you could watch them. I don't know, because I was not on a base, but they could watch a civilian that would, you could see them counting, like walk from this hooch to that, how many paces, and they turn the paces into foots. How many foots is that from this one? For an American yards. And that night, they would come close. So they would, guy said, you're constantly, he was an MP. He said, you're constantly looking at who's doing what, where, and why. Problem.
When you were in Holland, because you were stationed at a base, did you leave the base? Did you interact with Dutch people? Like, were they?
Oh, I got friendly with the local bartender.
Did you?
Good guy to get friendly with.
Yep.
He had a couple of kids.
Better after the journal.
Very friendly, and we'd bring chocolate to the kids and cigarettes to the owner, and we got all the beer we wanted.
Oh.
And plus food.
Yeah, and better food than you got on the base, yeah.
Were the Dutch happy you were there?
They were fantastically happy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, and your experience of, you're loading these planes, and then sort of, that must have been a tremendous amount of work. How many planes were you responsible for loading and then cleaning the machine
Well,
guns?
there were two armorers that took care of 2 airplanes every night. You'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, the bombs would be delivered to the airplanes, we would go out and load them, and then usually get back to bed about 6. The planes would take off about 7, and we'd sit around and wait until they came back around 2.
So they would go out multiple times during the day?
Most of the time, it was 1 mission a day until D-Day. D-Day was a 3-mission day. It was very, very busy. And we're coming up on the 75th anniversary of D-Day,
Yeah.
this coming June 6th.
Are you going to do anything for it?
I'm going up to our assemblyman's gathering up at Freedom Park in LaGrange. He does that every year,
Does it?
and it's open to all veterans. But you get about 20 World War II guys that show up for that.
You know, not for nothing, but when I came home, I was probably in the best shape I ever been. I didn't let anybody spit on me, make fun of me, call me names. I was wired. I was ready for it.
How many guys
You
you punch
hear
out?
about it, you know, nobody did it. I was hoping, I think I was at the thing, come on,
You were ready
make
to...
a run of me. No, nobody. So, the only time we got aggravating was when I was going down to Fort Benning after I got home. And me and this guy, Gene Savage, is sitting in the airport bar. And there's people down there, you know, when people talk so you can hear them. You know, and baby killer shit and stuff like that, you know. So the bartender went over and threw them out. I said, that's great.
You know, in 2004, I went to the state convention with the American Legion up in Buffalo, New York. And they have a wonderful military historical park right on Lake Erie. And part of the park, they have the Vietnam Memorial, a miniature of the one in Washington, D.C. And 10, 12 times I started going in, I had to turn around. Lost too many friends in Vietnam.
Well, a lot of them were needless, but,
When you say needless, what do you mean?
well, what did we get out of it, even when we went in? The only reason we went there, believe it or not, was the only legal war that we ever fought, because we had an agreement with CEDAW, and we had to honor them. On the other hand, I don't see why we had to let them tell us how to run a war. They gave you no support, they were useless, the Army. And the other way, you know what they used to do? And I didn't find this out until about 10 years ago. If you were in an ARVN unit, the Army Republic of Vietnam, and you got killed, they never reported you dead. So your battalion commander would take your pay.
Really?
So what's the point to have, so now you've got these undersized companies that are running around,
Because
and if
they
he
never
needs a raise, he
replace
just has 2 more killed, you know, and he gets a raise. So very few people know that, but here we are, you know, and I remember when you get off the plane and you go to your unit, and they have what they call charm school, where you're gonna, all you do then is you spend a week learning how your unit operates, you know, with the cavalry, helicopters, and rappelling, stuff like that. So which could have been done in 2 days, which I like the extra 3 days. But they would tell you, and it would always be a sergeant, a senior NCO. What he told us, he says, you're in Vietnam, you're the guest of this country. And he would give you all this stuff about how you're the guest, you know. And he says, but I want to tell you right now, your host is no good. But he used a much stronger vernacular when he mentioned it. So watch your back. Watch the ARVN. And it reminds me of how these guys are turning on him in Afghanistan and, you know. But that was his attitude. They're no good, there's nothing we can do about it.
Can I ask you about that idea of the sort of motivation? You're saying, like, well, what was this for? I mean, in World War II, it was very clear and definite. You were fighting Hitler, you were fighting the Nazis. It was that. In Vietnam, did you question, like, what am I fighting for?
No.
You didn't.
What was the point?
Right.
So you're there, you do your time, you know you're getting out in the year, and you can't go anywhere. It's one of the things, you can't go AWOL.
Did you
You know.
know what you were fighting for?
I was fighting to get this thing here at the bottom of my spine home. And my buddies,
Yeah.
we're gonna survive this. But things that you do are remarkable, and you only do it because it's survival. There's no such thing as mom's apple pie and the goodness of America. And we are good, we sacrificed her. Here.
Yes.
You know, everybody used to be drafted. If not, you had to go and join a different branch of service. And Nixon did away with the draft. And I think that, at that time, I thought it was a good thing, but I think it's the worst thing that ever happened. Because it made a man out of a boy. It turned you into a person that respected, that knew how to take care of himself. How, like he said earlier, that you have to make the bed. And you're taught that. You turn into a person that has to do everything on your own. Today, that's all gone. And they don't get the idea of regimentation or a routine or following orders. There's none of that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, with the draft, you also got, I think, a better educated soldier. Because you had to go. You could be a college, high school,
Yes.
but you got a better educated soldier. And a lot of them stayed. Tommy Frank. Tommy Frank was a draftee. And he just stayed and became a 4-star general. So nobody mentions that because a lot of people won't go unless they're forced to go and find out, it ain't that bad. And then they come home with something they could be proud of. No matter what they do, everybody's serving. Everybody's doing a job. I had a friend of mine was in Guam with the Air Force, and they were 16 hours a day loading B-52s, constant. They would come in, they would be serviced, while they were loading them for the next flight out. You know, now, all right, he wasn't going to get shot there, but you work 16 hours a day. This is physical work. Going on, how long did Nixon have it going on there?
Yeah.
A month? So everybody's doing a job.
And that, I think this idea of service too.
And is that?
Yeah, when you came home, I mean, you had done so much already for your own country, but did you feel that that sense of service really stayed with you? Did it make you think about other ways that you were serving in your community? I know a lot of vets came back and became firemen, for example. Like, did that?
Well, I was that close to being a cop. However, they weren't making any money. At Con Ed, had just gotten a great contract. I was up to like $250 a week. When I left, I was making $40 take home. I come back, we're making what? Who needs the cops?
And you were able to go right back into your old
Oh, yeah.
job?
No, in fact, I got a better job because your seniority counts.
Oh, great.
So your service time counts as seniority. So I went to Westchester, which was a great move. And then I got a splicer. I became a splicer, which was another $200. So the service wasn't bad when you look at it that way, you know?
Before you left, you were married, did you have children? before?
No, I had one on the way, you
Oh,
know?
you had one on the way?
Yeah, he was born June 10th. I didn't find out till the 14th. So to this day, I send him a birthday card on the 14th. Well, I got the captain comes out and he tells me, hey, your wife had the baby. I says, good. And we happened to be at this place, Utah Beach. And Utah Beach had beer and stuff. So we got plenty of that. And I got tanked. And I passed out on a tank trip. So thank God they didn't run me over. The APCs were coming in. Guy Dred, he said, oh, he must belong here. Dropped me in front of a seahorse hooch. And the next thing I'm getting up and getting kicked in the morning. What the hell are you doing? Get out of it. Go to the bunker. I said, what bunker? Where am I? I probably said something like where I am. But that was a stroke of luck.
Yeah.
You know, he even gave me, he said, all right, go see the Red Cross guy, because they couldn't tell me, girl or boy, how much you weighed, how's my wife. So he gave me a trip pass, get in a helicopter, go to the big LZ Jane. And I went there and I saw the Red Cross guy and he couldn't tell me either. He said, oh, when you find out, write me a note. You know, they wouldn't let me stay there.
You
So
know,
when you came home, you met your son for the first time?
No, R&R.
R&R.
I wouldn't take my R&R till November, because I was coming home in February. And I wanted to get the bulk of the field thing, because it seemed like when guys get on R&R, they would get lazy. They would come out, they wouldn't be as careful. So I wanted to say, as sharp as my knife. So I figured I could stretch. An infantryman's a devious son of a bitch. I could stretch this out as far as I could. And he can attest to this, right or wrong. Try to stay out of combat as much as you can. So when I came back, I went there at Thanksgiving. You know, I didn't even realize it was Thanksgiving when I met my wife in Hawaii. So,
So they flew out to meet you.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they wouldn't let me go home to see them. That would have been too good.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I go back, and I spent an extra week. There's a thing they have, rank has its privilege. And if you're going to get on an aircraft to go someplace, I'm a lowly E5. I'm the bottom. They got captains, majors, colonels who have to go there. So I would try to show up right at the brink of departure, knowing that all these other guys want to go. So my name could never, no, we got no room. Oh, darn. All right, back to where I was. You know, hit the PX, the gin mill. We'll try again tomorrow. Give it another shot. You know? And then I put in for a leave as soon as I got there. So I took a 7-day leave. I went to Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, wow.
And you got to remember, you don't drink in the Army because you're in the field, not because anybody stops you. So 3 beers, you got your kite up, you're gone. You're gone. And the other thing with the Army is a quarter of beer.
Wow.
In some places, a nickel. You know, so it could be, if you took the war away, it could be almost like Disney World for adults. And the steaks are $1.
Wow.
A nice steak, too.
you know, the World War II veterans and the Korean veterans are getting too old. But a lot of your Vietnam veterans and veterans after that period, if this country needed them, they'd be willing to go.
Hey, take it easy with that. He can go too.
When you guys came back from World War II and the Korean conflict began, Korean War began, were you asked to go? Were you?
No,
No.
I wasn't. I don't know whether you were.
No.
No, I worked with a guy though that went.
Yeah.
Some
He was a
volunteer.
Yeah.
He was a Marine, he was drafted in the
Yeah.
Marines. And when that opened up, they redrafted him.
Yeah.
I said, Stevie, you'll never hit the lottery. You have absolutely no luck whatsoever.
Today, in the service, a lot of times, you've got to get permission to fire your weapon, even if you're being threatened.
You know that's true. My son works with a guy who was a captain in charge of a company. And when they were assaulting Fallujah, they had the Marines were on their right, and they were here. And they took fire, and in the Army, you fire back. You don't ask anybody, can I shoot? And they opened up, but they didn't hear any fire coming from the Marine side. And they, you know, he got them on the radio, they're on the net. And he said, what are you doing? Are you guys getting hit? If you're not getting hit, you know, you can come over here and be with us and get hit. And the guy said, no, we're just waiting for permission to fire back. What kind of war is this? You know, what are we kidding? You shoot, somebody shoots at you, you shoot back. Sometimes you shoot first.
Are all of you in the American Legion? You're all in.
Yeah, I'm an American
Yeah,
Legion.
but some of them
and
go on to other
VFW.
organizations, veterans organizations also.
I was
I'm the
curious.
VFW too.
The guys coming back now, do they seek you out? Do they seek out your experiences afterwards and your, no,
A
they don't?
few, not
No,
many.
they don't.
The majority of them, they're just coming back from a bad situation.
Yeah.
They're coming home, they have to find themselves, get themselves resituated. A lot of them, they get married and have kids. A lot of them have work, and they're so busy, they don't really have time to go out and look to join what organization. Today,
They'll do like we did. They'll join later on when they have time.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
some of us didn't get involved until many years later.
That's what
after
I
being out
mean,
of the
nobody's got
service.
time, you
I
got your
didn't join,
kids.
that's what I've been doing all my life.
And did you went to Con Edison?
Right, I got all my learning from Con Ed, they paid for everything, so.
They pay for everything?
Yeah. And the VA is good, don't get me wrong, it's not, I still go up there, I got my house on a VA.
Back to accounting.
Oh, okay.
I was just high school, but I
Yeah.
studied on my own and the like, and I ended up managing a manufacturing engineering department.
That's great.
I had college graduates working for me.
I was
Today-
foreman when I left.
You were a foreman when you
Yeah.
left?
Today, the way the medical situation in this country, I worry for the youth today, what they're gonna have for coverage in the future, and what it's gonna cost them. And I think for a lot of young people, maybe they should consider going into the military, because you can get treated at a VA hospital. And we have a very good VA hospital right here at Castle Point. And it might be a wise situation to consider that.
Yeah. And you feel that the VA has been very good to you, that, you know, it's well,
Very good.
yeah,
And we happen to have a good one,
yeah.
Castle
for the
Point
most
hap-
part.
Yeah,
Castle Point happens to be in the top 10% of all the hospitals in the country.
it's like anything else, some are terrible, some are great.
And there used to be a TB hospital,
I didn't know
Really?
that.
That's really interesting.
I was at the VA hospital 3 times this week, and the last time I went, I was talking to the guy next to me. He's from Connecticut. And I said, Connecticut? He says, why don't you go to New Haven? He said, that facility, he says, I prefer this one. I drive all the way from Bethel here rather than go to Connecticut.
Now, when I got out, and I'm sure you remember, Waterville was the nearest veterans hospital.
That's right, yeah.
You had to go to Waterville,
Yeah.
or Brooklyn, Manhattan, you know,
Bronx,
Bronx.
Well, yeah, the Bronx VA was open way back then, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
and they tried to send me there rather than Castle Point. I
see,
said,
when
why
I
can't
was-
I go to Bronx?
can-
Castle Point,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
When we were growing up, TB was quite a problem.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you get the veterans benefits. I have diabetes, they pay me for that. I had a heart problem caused by diabetes, pay me for that, so I got no bitch.
Now, we're lucky to have Castle Point.
So when you came back, and, you know, you had a great party, ended up in Lake Placid with 25 cents in your pocket. How long did it take you to feel like was there a period of readjustment when you came back to being in civilian, you know, in civilian life?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it was, but the public accepted us so much, it was much easier for us than the Vietnam guy. When I came, I couldn't buy a beer. I'd go into the place and I'd say, give a soldier a drink, give a soldier a drink, right?
Yeah,
That's how we were treated.
you were treated
Vietnam guys did not
Very-
experience.
very pleasant.
Well, no, I did.
You did?
Yeah, well, my neighborhood
Good
was
for
like
you.
that. The owner of the neighborhood bar was my godfather, so I didn't have to be in the service to get a free drink.
Yeah, well,
In White Plains, I'm a Vietnam era veteran. If you were in uniform, you could go in a bar or restaurant, and you couldn't pay for a drink. And you'd even get maybe a hamburger or something.
Yeah. So you were treated well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
he was-
I had to,
but we were, not all of them, though.
No,
Right,
no.
no, this is
it
not,
depends where you were.
exactly.
Yeah, we were talking about that because, of course, everything that you see how horrendously Vietnam vets were treated when they returned.
A lot of them were.
And we were wondering though, in places where, you know, you already had families and you were already really established, did people treat you when you came home, they were just happy to have you home, and, you know?
Well, probably one of the biggest aggravations for me was everybody wanted to be me. You'd see him in a bar. Yeah, I was there. Who were you with? I can't remember. Or I was top secret. I said, come on, you were drafted. They wouldn't even tell me where I was. They're giving you the atom bomb secrets, you know? Then they would get embarrassed.
Yeah.
because most of them didn't even know what a DD-214 was. So, and everybody gets one, so if you were there, you have to know, you know?
So why do you think they were doing that?
Because they wanted to be that. They wanted people to think they were some kind of hero. And there are really not a whole lot of heroes, just a bunch of people saving their own lives,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
And their buddy. You never leave a buddy. It's, oh, we have reunions every year. So Steve came to the first reunion about 10, 12 years ago. And he says, yeah, I was here on May 4th. I said, wait, we were in that fight. Yeah. I says, I remember you now. And somebody said, well, he got up, yelled, follow me. And nobody followed him. Everybody was smarter than him. But you couldn't leave him there, even though everybody thought he was dead. And I was the first platoon, I was the second platoon over here. But they went up and dragged him down, you know. And he was unconscious, and sometimes I think it's much better to be unconscious. Because when they bring you out to the helicopter, they're dragging you through rocks, mud, whatnot. Throw you on a bird, graciously. There's no stretchers like you see in the old movies.
Yeah,
It's a poncho.
really.
Carry him down in a poncho. So when I seen him now, I said, geez, I thought you were dead. Geez, thank God, no.
One of the questions I was asking about coming back, though, is just, just the process of being in combat or being overseas and then coming back to a very quiet kind of life and existence. Was that difficult to adjust to, or?
No, but you have to remember, I went to Fort Benning
Yeah.
when I came back. So you had an adjustment there. I didn't come back and go right into civilian life.
Yeah.
So I think it gave me a little more eased in. But I don't think it would have bothered me anyway. It's never bothered me.
It was easy.
It was
Yeah.
easy coming back.
It was a hell of a lot better than what I was doing.
Were you able to take advantage of the GI Bill as well? or-
Yeah, I did. I went to RCA Electronic School down on 320 West 31st Street down Manhattan. And I became a B7 program electronic technician. But when I got out of that, I worked for General Precision Laboratories. They built Doppler radar systems for aircrafts, but the system that they had and they developed, it would only track up to 1,000 miles per hour. And we were having jets and planes that were going faster than that, so that more or less dissipated too.
You guys have been doing this for a very long time right now. I know you were all in combat, but, sitting
I
on these
was.
chairs is not, well, I meant,
Yeah.
before when I said we've been doing this for a while. But I think we should maybe wrap this up because you have given us a lot of your time. I do have a question about whether or not you would be willing to come back and talk to the Honor Society maybe at the beginning of the school year next year. Would that be something?
Yes,
that
definitely.
You would be, especially if you are talking about service, it's juniors and seniors, people that are interested in, going in. We do have kids that are.
I mean, when I was in the service, when I was in elementary school, I used to look at the map of the world and I used to wonder, what's like everyday life of this person, this country, and what's their customs? And I was very fortunate. I've probably been in 70, 80 different countries.
Wow.
And I saw a lot of fantastic things. I've been in Notre Dame Cathedral. I've been in the Leaning Tower of Pisa. A lot of places I got to see that I would have never done if it wasn't for the Navy. And that's one reason when I went into the Navy, I told them I wanted to serve overseas.
Yeah. And so you saw this as this great opportunity to see the world and.
Yes.
Yeah. Which obviously it really was for you.
It was. I mean, just today,
I wouldn't have a very interesting story to tell the seniors.
Students?
Huh?
No, you don't think?
Well, one reason, because of what I really believe, and Danny mentioned this before. When kids get out of high school, there should be some plan that they spend 2 years doing service for their country. I don't care whether it's in the military or some other place, but they should do this for 2 years and then decide if they want to go off to college. This will teach them responsibility and respect which is all, what we all learned when we were in the service.
Yeah, we didn't have the
This is not
option.
taught to our kids today, I don't think, when they're getting ready to get out of high school.
So you don't think it would be good to come in and tell our students
No,
that?
they would hate that.
I
I'm
don't
saying,
think
hey,
so. Would you hate that? I'm asking, yeah.
No, I think it's very interesting. I mean, I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and if I want to, and I feel guilty almost to not enlist into the military, Dukes. And I've been talking to my parents about this and
have you?
trying to
Good for you.
figure out what I want to do. And
Well,
as
before
a-
you do that,
Yeah.
take a look at all the options in the military.
Yes, indeed.
They got some great options now.
As of now, I'm enrolled at the University of Rochester for the next, for the fall, but I've just been thinking about this a lot, what I want to do with my life, but.
RIT?
Navy, the
No,
Navy
University of
or Air
Rochester.
Force.
It's right down the road from RIT.
You know, the Marines and the Army are not an educational option. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It is an experience, but if you're looking to get an education and go somewhere, the Navy and the Air Force have better programs. I mean, it's computers, and usually they're for operating weapon systems,
That's right.
you know? For experience and an exciting life, you might want to consider the Army, if that's what you're looking for. They have I know people talk to Marines of, the Army has everything, every type of unit. Long range recon, airborne, whatever you want, special forces, if you wanted to live a life of danger. And that used to be an Army soon.
Any more questions you guys have that you want to?
So I just wanted to have a question, bringing it back a little bit, was during your time serving, keeping in touch with family, how did you go through that, if you did, like if you would get any responses?
Mail.
You wouldn't?
Mail.
Mail.
Mail, yeah.
Yeah, you give it to the door gunner and he would bring it in and put it in a pouch.
I was moving around quite a bit in the destroyers. And I remember one day, about 4 days before Easter, I got a letter, an Easter card from my sister. And when I looked at the date, she mailed it the year before. It took a while for it to catch up to me.
So,
Today, you have cell phones, iPads, and everything else. It's almost instantaneous.
yeah.
They had Mars, the military, some radio thing where you could go and get in touch with somebody in the States who would call the number you wanted and you would talk over the radio. But if you ever got near one, the line was a mile long.
Yeah.
So I never did that.
So it was just letters.
To me,
Letters
yeah.
back and forth, yeah.
Well, as long as I didn't blame you for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for, taking the time to sit down with us and,
Do you want these pictures? Or
yes.
you do?
Please, that would be really wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I know that Owen has done the one-on-one interviews for the Library of Congress. Would any of you be interested in doing that as well?
Yes.
It's just a one-on-one? Okay.
If it's helpful.
You
Yeah,
want
that's
some
what
of
this
these?
is. That's what this
Yeah,
is,
that's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another picture. This is a picture of,
I hope you don't mind me saying, but you guys were all very handsome when you were here.
Oh, thank you.
Not that you're not handsome now.
I was just gonna say, what do you mean, whoa?
That comes
and
from
the
the good
picture of the
food.
airplane I worked.
That comes from the good food in the military.
Yeah, yeah.
I was the assigned armor to that.
Calling it
airplane.
food
This
is an
airplane,
insult.
and that's the Screaming Eagle?
Screaming Eagle.
That's what they were called?
Yeah.